impressed were you by this Ravens squad?
Stephen A., I was extremely impressed because I thought it was ultimately a tribute to the Baltimore Ravens' character, its guts, its heart, backbone, tradition, to survive that game against its arch rival on its arch rival's field in a big primetime Thursday night game without one of its key leaders, Terrell Suggs, and remain afloat for the season, to save its season. Because I've told you before, I've said it twice this week, if Baltimore could survive this game, the schedule to me, and I know every NFL schedule, it's hard to say they're easy, but it gets way easier. All of a sudden, Baltimore is still a factor in this division race, because I think Baltimore, off now a little mini bye, 10 days off, will start to get on a roll as it starts to get healthier. So my point is that last night, with only 2 healthy weapons that in the end were no longer healthy, the great Steve Smith Sr. did not play in the fourth quarter and overtime after Timmons hit him in the back with the helmet. Obviously, Steve Smith misidentified exactly which opponent hit him in the back. He thought it was Mitchell, but it was Timmons, and he was lost for the rest of the game. Campanaro, who made the most spectacular play of the night to score Baltimore's first touchdown, was lost for the back half of the fourth quarter in overtime. Crockett Gilmore, who's become Flacco's favorite target this year other than Steve Smith, couldn't go last night with a calf injury. And obviously that Brashard Perriman that they drafted in the first round this year, the big stud receiver out of Central Florida, just had arthroscopic knee surgery. So he's gone. So you're down to, you don't even have your left tackle. Eugene Monroe is still out with a concussion. So your backup is in there. Your primary target in money time last night was Kamar Aiken, who made the catch of the game because Flacco made the throw of the game late to save it and set up the field goal that took them to overtime. Really? Kamar Aiken, who's bounced around to Buffalo and New England? That's all you got? Undrafted? Really? That's all you got? Because that was pretty much it. You're throwing to Max Williams, rookie tight end, 21 years old, out of Minnesota? Really? And so I was highly impressed that against all odds, this team overcame 2 big Flacco to Fluco turnovers. They lost the turnover battle 2-0, and they won away. They went for it with the fake field goal on 4th down and blew that. Then they went for it another 4th down. Flacco tried to sneak it, and they blew that. Think of all their blunders. I could get just as worked up over how Baltimore almost blew the game to Pittsburgh. I could make a case that they made more mistakes to blow the game than even Pittsburgh did, though in the end, the quote-unquote fatal mistakes, football-wise, were made by the Steelers. But look at what they overcame to get out of there alive, barely alive, with a W, and look out now for the Baltimore Ravens, because here they come.
Well, Skip, I respect your position, and obviously we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens here, so everybody knows that from a fact-based perspective, you're absolutely right. But I would contend to you that outside of Justin Forsett showing up and reminding us all of the running back that he was last year, and he deserves a whole lot of credit for that because he played an hellacious game last night. He deserves a lot of credit. You got to remember, Baltimore didn't even start the game running the football on their first drive. They threw the ball every time. They didn't even run the football. And then here comes Justin Forsett. He set up their first touchdown because of a 33-yard run. There was still the fake field goal, obviously, that flopped. There's no question about that. There was also an interception from Flacco to Cockrell. There was a fumble recovery on the part of Cockrell as well, who made a difference last night for the Steelers. But in the end, Skip, I have to tell you, without denigrating the Ravens in any way, because they just reminded us all of the character that they had in that franchise, on that football team, from Newsom, to Harbaugh, right on down, even without T. Sizzle and, Ray Lewis, who retired a couple of years ago, and everybody else. The reality of the situation is that I think that this is more so about the Steelers losing than about the Ravens winning. Really? The Steelers gave it. I really feel that way. I really feel that way because, to me, Joe Flacco didn't have one of his greatest games. He only threw for 189 yards. He was 20 of 33. There was nothing spectacular about his performance, even though he made a couple of key throws, which he always does, particularly in Pittsburgh. You know, Steve Smith ended up going out. Aiken caught a touchdown pass. That was really good to see because you're seeing somebody other than Steve Smith Sr. stepping up, and we get all of that. But the Steelers were up 20-7. Baltimore did pull within 20-14 and then ultimately 20-17, but that was prior to botching, that fake field goal attempt because, they put themselves in a really precarious position. And you got to remember that the Steelers got the football, with 2 minutes left and still had a chance to ice the game. And then Scooby-Doo ultimately ended up missing a field goal yet again. Why? Because in part, the Steelers got conservative. The Steelers played the whole game conservative until the overtime period arrived. Then they got a bit reckless and adventurous, and it just got on my nerves. It shows there's no continuity, no rhyme or reason to what they're doing offensively, and we can understand and surmise why that is because there's Michael Vick instead of Big Ben Roethlisberger. But the flip side to it is that the game was theirs to lose, not once, not twice, but one could argue on at least 5 or 6 different occasions. The 2 missed field goals, the 2 4th-and-1 situations. I mean, you just look at it and you just say, what the hell is going on here? There were so many blown opportunities for the Steelers to put this game away. And it's shameful that they ended up losing in this fashion. They should have won it. They gave it away multiple times. And I personally think this is going to cost the Steelers. This could cost the Steelers big time. Really.
Okay, but one quick point of order. I'm no Flacco fan, but who was he able to throw to last night? How could the fact that he had, whatever you said, 189 yards,
whoever's
how
open.
Do that?
Whoever's
well,
open. Whoever's open.
Nobody.
Well, I can't say that. Aiken got open. Justin Forsett was running the football, and more importantly than anything else. Again, how many times do I have to repeat myself? I am not enamored with the Steelers' defense. There's nothing intimidating about them.
Wow.
There's nothing about them that really listen, it's getting better compared to what it was, but it still has a lot of work to do. There's nothing intimidating about the Steelers' defense whatsoever. They showed up yesterday and played relatively well, but what you going to do, give them an A or a B when they gave up 150 yards to a guy that wasn't even averaging 3.5 yards a carry coming into this game this season? Let's call it what it is. The Steelers were okay. They did a decent job, but there's nothing spectacular about this defense right now.
Okay, but bottom line, would you agree with me that ultimately Michael Vick wasn't good enough to win that game for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'm going to say to you that ultimately Todd Haley wasn't good enough because he didn't make sure that Le'Veon Bell got the ball. It shouldn't have came down to Michael Vick. It was supposed to come down to Le'Veon Bell or Scooby-Doo. It was supposed to come down to one of those two, and it didn't.
Tell us how you really feel.
Or it didn't in Le'Veon Bell's case.
Big win for the Ravens, though, who have a very favorable schedule coming up. I think they can easily win, not easily, but 4 of the next 5. Browns, Niners, Cardinals, which will be tough, Chargers, and Jaguars. Coming up, we'll get into this Sunday's Cowboys-Saints matchup. And speaking of the Cowboys, take a look at this photo that Orlando Scandrick sent us of his knee. He was on his way to Bristol yesterday when his trainers told him he couldn't get on the plane because, unfortunately, his knee flared up. But he's still going to give us a call later in the show. More on the Cowboys and Saints. That's coming up after the break.
Story would have been good enough. We need to see that picture.